Today is heat exchanger day. Got my Canadian Auto Performance high capacity heat exchanger. Pretty excited about it. Um, Watched some tutorials on how to replace a heat exchanger. Felt confident that I could strip down the car pretty easily, and that was the case. Pulling this part out was a little straightforward. There's one bolt on the right side. You could probably see that there. Nobody really talks about, but it's easy enough to find. You remove the two hoses from there. I clamped them off to try to save some of the coolant. But pretty excited about this because the cap heat exchanger is massively bigger than this one here. All right, I was finally able to get the crash bar off. Actually ended up needing to use a hammer. Actually, I had one hand on the left here just pulling back, one with the right just hammering it away. Came out pretty easily. Oh, actually, you have to remove these guys first. Using a right angle pick from the inside. I think those the horn, I believe. So if you remove that on both sides, it's pretty simple. Remove the crash bar. Measured up the new heat exchanger, trying to make sure I drill in the holes right the first time. It's actually pretty crazy how much bigger this is. Yeah, so this is the stock exchanger versus this Canadian Auto Performance exchanger. So this is a high capacity one, so it'd be equivalent to an S6 heat exchanger for Merc Racing. Cap just makes one, and what I do find is that this actually fits really well. I don't think there's going to be much like finagling or modification. With the bracket configured like this, it fits best. Because I was wondering if there's no real instructions, so I was wondering if this was supposed to be facing up or down. I'm guessing on application it might be better to do it the other way. Maybe in an S6, flipping it the other way would work better, but this setup seems to fit really well. I marked up the crash bar. I had already painted it black, so it made it hard to mark up, so borrowed the wife's stickers. So this is the pink stickers are where it lines up with the mount. On the back side, I put these green stickers, which pretty much lines up with where the brackets are gonna sit. So the green sticker is pretty much the inner part of the bracket. Couldn't use a marker because obviously I already painted it black when I swapped out the grill for a kind of crazy is just the sheer size difference between the stock and the Canadian Auto Performance. And just massively thicker than the stock one. Truly impressed. Very nice craftsmanship. Super clean. Excited to get this on and mounted. All right, so the heat exchanger is mounted up. Clearance is pretty tight, not gonna lie. Not a whole lot of space. The fit is pretty good, but it is really tight. So I mean, if you've got a heat exchanger, it'll fit on an S6 and S7. Putting it on an S4, you gotta expect it's gonna be tight. But yeah, pretty happy with it so far. It looks good. Just gotta button everything up, get the hoses on, and yeah, let's get this thing wrapped up. Actually, something I just did, there was these little rubber guards on the right and left side. I just removed those. I noticed that the guys who did the replacement for their heat exchangers took those off. It's gonna help with clearance and some of the piping, but I think that's worth removing. All right, so I'm just trying to get a dry fit of the bumper. So the bumper actually fits absolutely perfectly. I lined up the bracket to the very top of the crash bar. It seems to have perfect clearance. You can see the heat exchanger just comes to the bottom of the bumper. The top here has just enough clearance that the bumper can get over and fit again. So I feel pretty good. I was worried about getting too far and then having to reposition the heat exchanger, but it looks pretty solid as it is. So I'm gonna keep working on the hoses, which I seem to find the least amount of information. It's supposed to be super straightforward, but I tend to I try to be really careful. It's so easy to swap something. So still cooking here. All right, so this is what actually took me the longest amount of time. At least there was never any clear direction on this. So because this is a universal heat exchanger, not really universal, but an S6, S7, and the 3.0 Ts, the piping is made so that you can use it for each application. There isn't really any clear direction on which you should do. This is what worked out for my B8.5 3.0 T. On the left side, I ended up using an elbow over here. This actually took me the longest to figure out because I did this last. But I had to do an elbow. And over on this side, this is straight connection here. And this top piping here just went straight down here. Yeah, this took me the longest amount of time because I had to figure this out. This is the very last thing I did. I realized there was a pretty bad kink here, and if I didn't have the hose positioned like perfectly, the water flow was really poor in this area. So I used one of the elbow pipe joints to smoothen that out. So now there should be perfect flow. So now I'm getting to the point where I can start applying coolant and bleeding for air. And I think if this fits well, I'm actually gonna try to zip tie this to the front up here. We'll see how close I can get, but don't really want the pipe to just be sitting on the bottom of the splash shield here. So this is just how I'm going about it. I'm sure there might have been a better way, but this is what I figured out. All right, I'm just taking this last video because it's getting pretty late. It's winter, so the days are short. Was able to get the cap high capacity heat exchanger installed. It was an absolute perfect fit. I mean, this could not have squeezed in any tighter. Just enough clearance. I'm trying to do the proper coolant bleeds. They have a very nice plug right at the top of the heat exchanger there. Started with that. Trying to do the supercharger screws, but they are total crap. Those little rubber ones on the top are total crap. Ended up stripping one by mistake. Definitely gonna get those replaced with the 034 ones, or if someone else has one, because these are total crap and I may have stripped it. I'm not even sure I'm gonna get it out, but it's probably gonna be all right from now. But I do want to do a proper bleed. Not driving crazy up until I actually go do a pulley, maybe sometime next year. But yeah, that was pretty much it. Pretty straightforward, not too bad. I think setting up the coolant pipes was the hardest part because I had not seen an example. But otherwise, it's pretty nice. Looks really good. It actually looked a lot more discreet behind this black bumper than I originally thought it would. You could actually barely tell. It's a little dark, but you can't really tell that much. So looking forward to going dual pulley next year or sometime in the near future. But that's it. Later.